There's an increasing financial divide between business owners. Some are doing business the old way, trying to imitate their way to success and feel like they're falling behind, while the winners are taking a completely different path. Right now, people are using the principles of scientific entrepreneurship to kickstart business growth, whether they're a startup or already have a company, but they're stuck. Now, with AI as a tool, everything is moving fast, and there isn't time to waste guessing what works. If you want to own a high-growth business, watch this video now before you get too far behind and it becomes impossible to grow. The fastest growing companies have used massive budgets to test their way to success with focus groups and huge marketing spends. And until just a few years ago, that was out of reach for regular businesses. Right now, I'm going to show you how you can grow a business both quickly and with less risk for just a fraction of what the big players spend. I've used this strategy to grow 5 of my own businesses and hundreds of clients' businesses using scientific principles that have brought us the world as we know it today. The problem is most entrepreneurs are thinking of business the old, outdated way from 30 years ago. They come up with an idea, they build a product, they spend a ton marketing and hope it works out. So you can just reinvest profits in yet more marketing. Or they're just hoping and praying that people will want what they're selling. When things do work, it feels like luck because you're not sure how to repeat it. I call it the progress mirage. And in just a few minutes, you'll see how you can reliably repeat success and have control over business. The old way of thinking is why 23.2% of businesses fail in the first year, why 48% have collapsed by year 5. And even if you make it past that point, 44% of businesses fail because they run out of cash. But as you're going to see today, companies using scientific entrepreneurship break this expensive and dangerous way of trying to build a business. They're building profitable businesses, bigger and faster, with lower risk and spending less to do it. I learned the hard way. The old way doesn't work. Early in my entrepreneurial career, I used the hope strategy. I imitated other people's businesses. I spent time and money on things without knowing if it would work, and I was getting nowhere. One night at dinner, my wife asked me a question that still cuts me today. Is this business real, or are you just playing house? It cut because it was true. There was no strategy behind what I was doing. There was no reason that it should work. I realized that if I had a process to eliminate things that wouldn't work before I tried them and point me in the direction of things that worked in my specific situation, then that would be a secret weapon, not imitating what other people did. So if you don't know me, my name is Raj Jha. I've founded 5 companies, done over $440 million in sales, and a big part of what I've been able to accomplish was when I stopped doing random things and instead applied a scientific process to growing a business. Today, I'm going to show you how that system works and give you the tools to finally own the business you always wanted. And by the way, there is nothing for sale in this video, but if you stick till the end, I'm going to give you a free tool so you can install what you learn in this video in your business. If you're an entrepreneur, whether you have an existing business or just starting one, I'm going to show you how it works, share some examples of people who have done it, and give you a 3-step formula. But make sure to watch till the end because once you see the formula, you also need to know the big gotchas so that you can use this strategy and it won't backfire if you do it wrong. Once you get it right though, you can get results like this, and I'll give you this case study in just a few minutes. Now, you don't need to rely on a hope strategy. You don't need to risk your financial future. Deal with the stress of cash crunches. Wonder if it's going to work out because there is a process that you can use to almost guarantee business success without needing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on focus groups like the big companies do. What if you could spend just a few dollars and, using a paint-by-numbers approach, know what path to take so you'll be successful in business? Since you're watching this video, you're the kind of person who doesn't want to rely on other people for your success, and what's in this video is for you. 3 years ago, I started an e-commerce business. My friend James had also started one at the same time, so I asked him how he got started, how he grew, and he told me he'd launched 4 different products and spent 2 years and over $90,000 trying things before finding one that sort of worked. What most people do is go looking for a winning product, and then they hope they can luck into something that sells before they get into financial trouble buying advertising and inventory. Or they'll copy someone else's business, and later I'll show you how I lost a lot of money doing that. There was no way I was going to look at my wife in the eye and tell her I burned tens of thousands of dollars on a garage of products that didn't sell. Fortunately, after my early failures in business, I had a method to see if something works before wasting $90,000 and years of my life. I did what I now do every time I start a new product line. I spent about $150 doing targeted tests until I discovered what worked before I took any real risk. Then I spent only another $350 until I had the confidence that the idea was a winner. Instead of an expensive and embarrassing failure, I could tell my wife that I had another success under my belt by using scientific entrepreneurship. Let me show you how it works at a high level, share some case studies, then share some important dangers so you don't do this wrong. There are 3 phases to this process. The first step is to know what to try. If you're like most entrepreneurs, you have an idea and you try it, and if it doesn't crush it right away, you're looking for something else. But there are millions of things that you could do. How do you know which would be the most impactful right now? Now, a lot of strategies work for someone else, but wouldn't work for you. The odds of you finding the exact right strategy for you by guessing or in someone else's template are incredibly low. So after you evaluate it, next is experiment. But this isn't the boring high school chemistry with Mr. Dinkelfarb. This is because scientific entrepreneurship is about finding what's working fast with minimal cost. With 44% of businesses failing because they run out of cash, the faster you test and find what does and doesn't work, the better. This is finding out what works for you in your business, not just assuming that someone else has a magic business model. And the last is elevate. Once you've found what does and doesn't work, you elevate the high-performing strategies into your business with confidence they'll be profitable, and then run the next round to do even better. This is how I was able to take just $500 and scale one of my businesses to generate $2.9 million without investors. I did a $150 test to find out what was and was not likely to work. And then I took the winning concept, spent $350 on the next tests, and after that was able to have the business generate cash flow that paid for its growth. The process of scientific entrepreneurship also lets that business operate at a consistent 92% gross margins, while my competitors are operating at a 45% gross margins or less. That is double because I use this process over and over. And soon I'm going to show you how you can do this for yourself, whether it's starting a new brand or a new product from scratch, or if you're already in a business and want to get unstuck. Let's look at some case studies, from startups to mature businesses, to see it in action. Case study number 1. Painter was a small services business, and they wanted to create a service line that they've never done before. And it would take them over 10 years to grow to their first location, and they really weren't getting anywhere. Looking at the competition, they thought it would take years and a 6-figure investment just to get rolling. My team was brought in to test their way to success. With a tiny budget, we evaluated what to focus on, which is the evaluate process that I'm going to show you how to do in a couple of minutes. We took this new business from $123,000 that they earned doing hard, time-consuming pitches to 10 months later doing over $1 million with a steady flow of leads coming into them. Here are 2 more case studies showing the same process that can work in sales. One getting a 275% lift, the other one getting 173% lift, and 100% lift in daily sales. Some companies think they have a leads problem and they want to throw more money at advertising. But by running the scientific entrepreneurship process multiple times, in 9 months, this company had increased lead conversion more than 3x, meaning that without adding any new advertising expense, they were getting more than 3 times more sales. Here we have a products business, which shows doing multiple rounds of evaluate, experiment, elevate can compound results. I'm going to share with you a free tool to use for this, but in this case, in 5 rounds of experimenting, we were able to almost double revenue. We chose what experiments to run in the evaluate stage, so we know they're all impactful. We're evaluating what is important to run. So we know what's going to be the biggest lever. Then we run an experiment in phase 2, and then we compound the results each time, and it makes for a huge increase in revenue in just a few months. Now it's time for you to get this unfair advantage. Now that's whether you want to double your revenue or launch a new brand from scratch or double your margins. While other people are still playing the imitation game and hoping that business works, you'll have a step-by-step process to know before you spend time and money. What we want is a process that's fast, it's repeatable, can make sure you avoid making bad mistakes, and it points us in the right direction so we can be confident in business, instead of some trust me bro template that might or might not work for you. I made fun of chemistry class, but there's one thing that your teacher got right, and that is teaching a process in science class to get repeatable results. Now I'm going to give you that same thing, a repeatable process for entrepreneurship. But it won't feel like school, and it won't require tens of thousands of dollars on focus groups, as you'll see how to use sampling tools, AI, and time-tested scientific principles in just a few days to get a clear direction that is custom to your situation. Remember, the alternative is guessing or hoping your watered-down copy of someone else's business model will work. Hope isn't a strategy. It's the way to lose a bunch of time and a bunch of money throwing spaghetti against the wall. How do I know? Because I used to do it, and you're going to hear that story in a little bit. But let's go into detail about each step in the scientific entrepreneurship process so you know how it works. It may look like a lot, but once you master this, and you can do it in just 2 weeks, and it will take what used to take you 90 days and be super risky, you can just do it in a couple of weeks. For most entrepreneurs, they barely pay attention to what to try. They just pick something and they go with it. Maybe it's something they saw on YouTube or read in the book or saw someone else was trying it or just heard it from a colleague. It's what I did in the early days, and it's the reason I got terrible results and blew a ton of money. And I'm going to make sure that that never happens to you. The evaluate stage is based on what's called an expected value analysis. But don't worry, this is all simplified so that the rest of us can understand this. What you do is you take each business idea and you take 30 seconds to rank it on these 4 areas. And then there's a simple formula that takes those rankings and spits out what's the best one to try based on where you are today. Now, I've got a calculator for this, and I'll show you that, and you'll get access to it later. But here's the unintuitive part that you could get wrong if you did it the old way. You might have a business idea that's super high impact, but it costs a lot to try, and you won't get results for 18 months, let's say. And you're weighing it against something that's low impact and low cost to try, and you'll know if it works in a week. Well, depending on the ease to test, which is the third one here, you might be better off choosing one over the other. Because one could be nailing one big thing, you'd have the opportunity, the other one, to try more things if all of them are short. So there's a trade-off there. And now that you know what to try using that formula that I've showed you and that you'll get access to, how do you do it without breaking the bank? This is where we can use different kinds of tests to figure out what works with minimal risk. Every time you have an idea, you're fully rolling it out. That's what the old way is. I've got an idea. I'm going to roll it out and try it. But that's the longest, most expensive, most risky way to grow a business. You're making a ton of assumptions. Now, I'm in a private group of over 900 entrepreneurs who are doing an average of $24 million in revenue, and every single one I've talked to has pivoted their business because their original idea hasn't worked as expected. The experiment phase is how you can pivot fast and win. There are 3 kinds of tests that you can use in this phase. Directional tests are important because they're super fast and dirt cheap and work quickly, and they tell you what won't work. Now imagine knowing real fast that a business idea that you think is great is destined for failure. You can avoid paying what Keith Cunningham calls the dumb tax. That's doing things that you don't know will fail. In the business that I told you about earlier, this is where I spent $150 to make sure that I wasn't working on a losing idea. That's the directional test. A directional test can be a quick test to see if the market is even interested in what you want to offer. And you can do these with anything. I've used directional tests to find the best name for a new business, quickly see if customers had a pain point that I thought they did, find out how much people will pay for my products. I even used it to choose the cover for my new book. Next is statistical test. And don't get scared off that they're called statistical. Here you take ideas that have passed the directional test and spending just a little more, have confidence both that the idea has legs and which way to go to make it real. For example, in one of my businesses, we spend up to $90,000 a month on advertising. Now, we know the concepts work because of directional tests, so we use statistical tests to find out what ad campaigns will drive more leads. We'll often be testing over 100 different creatives in a week just because these are so quick to do. How much better do you think we are than our competition? I'm guessing, a lot, because they're guessing what works. And they're making 3 ads once a month. And we're doing 33 times that because we have it down to a science. Revenue tests are when you actually prove you can make money before spending a ton of money. These are the big daddy tests, but they're also the most precise. The statistical test has told us what's very likely to work. And now we use that in our business and we measure the revenue or cost impact. Now, of course, we aren't betting the farm. We've already done 2 rounds of testing that shows this is a good idea. And now we're only testing it on a piece of the business. But after running this, you could find something that increases revenue 50% or cuts your business costs a lot. Once that revenue test succeeds, you have a new trajectory for the company. This is where you lock in the results of the test, build new company processes to take advantage of it ongoing, and then repeat the scientific entrepreneurship process and do even better next time. Now let me show you how this works with a real-world example. So here's that real-world example. What we have here is an example of what my friend did starting an e-commerce business versus the opposite, what I could do starting an e-commerce business. Now look here, the old way, big, expensive swings. So he would take big bets and he would say, does this product work? And so he'd maybe buy a bunch of inventory, try to sell the inventory, and each time he would have a pretty big cost and it would take him between sourcing the product, making sure that the marketing was set up, paying for the advertising, generating everything. It would take him about 180 days. And he spent about $30,000 doing it. Now, he did make profit on some of these, but each time he was throwing spaghetti against the wall. Now, if you can see here, he's got this time, 180 days each time. So it's like taking him a half a year, right, to do each one of those. It's cost him about, on average, $30,000 each time. And the profit that he was making, he was zigzagging towards success, hoping. He was like, spray and pray kind of thing. So first time he spent $30,000 and he made $1,000. Nobody wanted that product. So then $30,000 and $3,500. Nobody wanted that product. $30,000, $18,000. Oh, maybe some people want that product. And so he starts to hone in on the kinds of things people want. Spend another $30 and not so much. Didn't get it that. And then $31. Okay, finally. He's got something that's making some profit, so he can start to be smarter about it. And then he moves it to production, 30 days. He knows what he's doing, and he starts to get his profit. So in all, he spent $180,000, and he's made $98,000 in profit. So that's not great. He spent a lot of money. Now, at the end of it, he does have a business, right? But it's taken him 2.5 years, and he's spent $81,000 in this model. His actual number was closer to $90,000, but this is just for example purposes here. And this is the old way. This is you're throwing spaghetti against the wall. You're taking big swings because you don't know any better. You haven't found a better model. Here, instead, we have scientific entrepreneurship. It's a very different kind of thing. So in that, we're going to start out here with a directional test. And we might do multiple directional tests. Remember, there are 3 kinds of tests. There's a directional test, which is cheap and fast. A statistical test, which is like better idea of will this scale, will this work? And then a revenue test. Can I make solid money with this? So this is quite different because what I did was I would do directional tests first. And I'll say, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? And I am assuming that I will make no money from these tests, but that's okay. I'm spending $50 per test. Okay, so this is similar to what I did in my situation. So I'd spend a few days, 3 days, and spend $50, and I'd make no money, but that's okay. All I'm doing, I'm not trying to make money here. I'm trying to see what does the audience want, and I'm gathering directional data. Next, statistical test. I'll run 3 statistical tests, and they'll take a little bit longer. They'll take a week, sometimes 2 weeks, but typically can do in a week, and it'll cost $1,500. But the difference is here, because I've run directional tests, I will actually be making a significantly more money off of this. So I'll run one and I'll say, okay, well, maybe I didn't do great on that one, but it's still better on average than what the big swing is doing. It's taking me less time, it's taking me less money, and I'm already closer to profit. And each time I'm getting a little bit better because each one is a refinement of the last one. Instead of just taking a whole nother wholesale swing, I've already gotten the stable of things that I will test from the directional test. So I'm already I've already thrown away the things that don't work. And I'm only working with things that are more likely to work. So as I spend more money on it, I am more confident that they'll make more money, and indeed they do. And look at this. I'm exiting to revenue test without actually being profitable. But that's fine, because I know there's one more layer here. And that's the revenue test. And that's where I'm testing at a larger dollar amount and I'm getting closer to profitability. So at the end of this, I can elevate to production, and I might even have similar numbers to what my friend did. So $35,000 in profit on elevating to production. But look at the significant difference here. I've spent 4.1 months and I have made money doing this, whereas he spent 2.5 years and he lost money doing this. This is how you do things intelligently. This is the difference between the businesses that are falling behind by doing things the old way or imitating what other people are doing and just hoping it works, or trying something and then when it fails, just trying a wholesale different thing. Once we stop thinking that way and we start thinking in a scientific way, we can zigzag our way to success, getting smarter every time. This is why if you follow what I'm talking about today, you will never have to worry that you don't have a path forward. You're never going to have that feeling, that lack of confidence that you don't know what to do, because you will have learned a process that you can use again and again and again. And if you trust in this process, you are going to know that you're heading in the right direction. Now, I'll give you a practical example of how this works. One of the businesses that I founded and sold was a marketing agency, and I started doing it exactly the wrong way. I saw a business model that someone else was using, and I decided to imitate it. They were selling marketing services to dentist office, and I was selling to law firms. And now the owner of the other firm, the one that I was copying, was making over $1 million a year, only 2 years in. So I thought it would be smart to do the same thing in the legal market. I mean, the old conventional wisdom is to see what works and do the same thing, right? It sounds like a good idea. And the founder even had some videos showing what he offered and how he marketed it. So it all seemed like a good bet. And I thought that if I just painted by numbers, I would get the same results. So I charged the same amount. I offered the same thing. I used similar ads, and I was getting good results for the clients. Now that should work, right? I'm getting good results. I copied everything. It should be a template. But my client list wasn't growing at all. And a year later, it was clear that the formula wasn't working. Even though I thought I had everything to clone that business, I hadn't. He had hundreds of clients, and I had 6. The important point is that you can't imitate your way to success. Even if you luck into your imitation working, something will go wrong. This is business. And then you'll be stuck because imitation doesn't give you a way to figure out what's wrong and give you a way to fix it. Once I realized this, I jumped on the scientific entrepreneurship process. And that's before I even named it that. So I did this, evaluate. So I calculated what the biggest levers were and their expected values. And guess what? For me, pricing came out on top. And then I ran an experiment. I tested different price points. So instead of $599 a month, I tried 3 different price points. And the highest, $1,500 a month, worked better. And then I elevated it. That became my new pricing level, which I bumped up my revenue for new clients. And then what did I do? What we always do. I did it again. So I did another evaluation. So this is number 2. And pricing was, again, the best expected value decision. So I experimented and went up to $2,500. Now, of course, in this process, I had to deliver a service that's worth it, right? I can't be delivering the same thing that I was delivering at $599 a month for $2,500 a month. But knowing that much, that I could charge that much, let me figure out the margins. And I knew I'd be profitable instead of guessing, because now I know I can charge that. So now I had to figure out what this higher grade of client wanted and how to deliver that. And that was the next test. And this repeated. And I tested now a $5,000 a month price point, then what offer worked best, figure out the market segments, how to deliver it, then repeat that with $7,500 a month, eventually getting me to $25,000 a month for a client. So here's the thing. The lesson here isn't just raise your prices. I also had to figure out what the new offer was, what to deliver, how to get leads from a different caliber of client, and how to maintain margins. All of these use the same process. In the evaluate stage, my calculator was telling me the best thing to do. And the result was insane. I was charging 41 times more and closing more clients and taking margins from 0 to over 35% in under 2 years. So what would that look like for your business? To have the confidence in the next thing to do. And instead of just hoping, you'd have a process that's specific to you getting the business that you want. Now, I hope this shows you don't have to wait and grind it out and pin all your hopes on some guru with a business in a box showing you the way or imitating something when we know now that imitation is not a guarantee of success. Since this is a process, you can use it in every area of your business. Here are a few of the things I've used it for. So I've doubled profit with a lower cost per acquisition. I've broken into new markets in 6 months. I've optimized sales scripts to 3.2x close rates. Employee incentives I've created to keep employees 1.6 times as long as they were before, so they don't leave the company. I got job postings that got 11 times more candidates, and I've cut product delivery costs by over 60%, all using this process. So here's a good question. Will every test be successful? No. But you saw that when you do things in multiple rounds, the way that I'm suggesting that you do it here, every test you'll learn something and get better. Instead of just hoping like the old way, a test that's so-called failing, it isn't a bad thing. It means you stopped before you wasted a lot of time and money. Your business will grow faster. Now, none of the results that I'm showing you happened on the first try, but because there was a repeating process, we got smart faster than doing things the old way. They happen in months, not in years. There's so much noise, and AI is making things faster and faster. And you don't have time to stay stuck. You don't have time to guess. You don't have time to waste just seeing if something will work. I mentioned that I've made this simple for people without degrees in math or physics. When scientists are doing experiments, they're doing it in a lab, and they need to make sure that their results are 100% repeatable. But in our case, in business, we're competing against time. We don't always have the time or the money to run tests for months and deal with pure science sample sizes, standard error and confidence intervals and all that kind of statistics. That doesn't take into account what matters for us. Speed matters. In business, speed matters. We are in a race against time to make, as the market changes, as AI comes in fast, as the customers change, as the competition changes, time is the critical element that is missing when you try to do things purely scientifically versus how I'm talking about it today, which is extremely practical. Remember that spreadsheet I showed you? Let's say you wanted to launch a new product or relaunch the branding of what you're selling today. And you wanted to know whether people will buy it without spending a ton of money on a launch that could fail, right? So how do you ask people so they aren't telling you what you want to hear, right? We all know, well, you just can't ask your mom and your best friend. They're not customers. But how would you set this up to get good results for the product that you want to launch? How many people do you need to ask? Do you need them to say yes or no they buy? So, how many people? Now, do you need just a yes or no? Do you want them to rate 1 to 10? Do you want them to tell you how much they'd pay? Every one of these decisions will change the results. And some would take too long to be useful. You run this thing and you ask a bunch of questions, or you see if they actually buy. That's too long. Or yes, no, is that actually useful? What's the right number of people to ask? Some of them would actually lead you down the wrong trail. You see, all of those heavy science concepts of sample sizes and standard error and confidence intervals and all that stuff that we learned in high school, maybe, if we even remember it. I don't think I learned it. But they only matter when simplified for using them in a practical business context. If you try looking it up on how to run tests online, you'll get an answer that doesn't work in the real world because it's too academic. So in 2 minutes, I'll give you a way to make sure that doesn't happen to you. But in the meantime, let's talk about what you want for your business future. You've seen that scientific entrepreneurship, these principles can grow your business faster with more certainty and more cost effectively than the old way of guessing. You've seen the results that I've gotten and the companies I've worked with got. You live in a world made easier by technology and the things that were built on people trying and testing things. What if you could use the same process to make your business what you've always wanted? Whether I'm working on an exciting startup or one of the mature businesses I've invested in, or if I'm advising, I'm excited to work because I've got this secret weapon in my pocket that prevents me from paying the dumb tax and wasting years of my life. It changed confused and anxious to calm. I don't have to worry about playing house in a business because it's clear what to try next. And I don't need to break the bank hoping that it will work. So right now, you have a choice to make. A year from now, you could have wasted a ton of time and money going nowhere. You could keep falling behind as the world gets faster, or you could have mastered the process, evaluate, experiment, elevate, and own a business that you love and be excited to keep growing. Doing nothing or doing things the old way is a path that looks and feels familiar. But every day that you don't have the tools to control your business future, you are actually taking more risk. But now you know there's a different way, and you could decide to stick with the momentum to change your entrepreneurial journey. Not by imitating somebody else, but by mastering entrepreneurship for yourself, so you don't need to rely on anyone else. At the beginning of this video, I told you there's nothing to buy. So I also don't want to mislead you. To get the data to make good decisions, you do need to run tests on platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Google, and use some software tools to test. I think it's an incredible trade-off that I could invest $500 in tests and get a $2.9 million in new business, or go from charging $599 a month to $25,000 a month. But I've also been doing this for a while, and I've figured out all the nuances that trip up beginners. The bottom line is I'm not selling you anything today, but I am being honest that if you're unable or unwilling to spend at least $2,500 and actually do the work of mastering this for maybe 90 days, then this isn't the strategy for you. This isn't a good fit if you're looking for freebies or dopamine hits of so-called business opportunities or get-rich-quick schemes that promise you a business in a box. You will need to put in some time. You will need to budget for these tests on platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Google. That's just part of what this is. But if you're ready to change the course of your business and see how this would work for you, just click on the link below this video or visit ceoworkbench.com/science, and you'll be taken to a free scorecard that will analyze your business and what kind of return on investment you could see from using scientific entrepreneurship, and let you download the calculator that you saw for free. Now, the scorecard will ask you just a few questions about your business and your goals, and will highlight where you can get the fastest results by using this process of scientific entrepreneurship. It'll also give you the first steps and access to the speed calculator you saw on the video. Now, a free version of the scorecard won't be available forever, and if you visit the page and I've taken it down, I'll leave a message on the page about whether we'll offer it again. So once again, go to ceoworkbench.com/science for a completely free scorecard, which will show you how this will be applied in your business and the kind of results that you can expect.